Before seeing this car, I had one assumption. The S-Class is just a chauffeur's car now. I was wrong, because this car thinks about the driver just as much as the passenger in the back, and while doing that, it flat out refuses to kill the V8. This is the 2025 Mercedes S-Class S500. Let's start outside. When we talk about a facelift, the first thing we look at is the grille, and here, Mercedes went heavy on the star detailing. And honestly, it works. The headlights have always been a strong point for Mercedes. This time they've gone with micro-LED units that can illuminate up to 600 meters ahead. At night, nothing in this segment comes close. And there's a new design detail worth pointing out. The iconic three-pointed star motif now appears in both the daytime running lights at the front and the stoplights at the rear. At night, the car behind you knows exactly what they're looking at. Look at the details, and you see a modern face. Sharp, precise, confident. But the classic S-Class stance is still there. It doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. And of course, the hood star stays. It wouldn't be an S-Class without it. Here's something that genuinely surprised me. 400 interior color options. 140 exterior colors. The MANUFAKTUR personalization program has expanded massively with this generation. The car we drove, exterior in black, interior in green leather. The moment you open the door, you immediately think, this is a different level. This car leaves the factory already personal. Even on the used market, you'll rarely find two identical S-Classes. To really understand the S-Class, you have to go back. Mercedes introduced the concept of the Sonderklasse, literally special class. Since then, the S-Class hasn't just been a car, it's been the technology manifesto of its era. A BS debuted in the S-Class, 1978. Airbags, S-Class, 1981. ESP, S-Class again, 1995. The history of this car is essentially the history of the modern automobile. The W140 is a particularly interesting story. Mercedes built it so large, so heavy, so over-engineered that they prioritized engineering pride over sales figures. When it hit the market, the world asked, how is this even possible? The W223 triggers the same question, except now it's not about engineering. It's about technology. Now let's get to the most important part. This car runs a new generation V8, coded M177 Evo. Is this actually a new engine? Fair question. Technically, yes. The block is shared, but everything else has changed. New crankshaft, revised internals, completely reworked emissions system. They had to meet Euro 7 compliance without giving up power, both at the same time. And here's the key engineering decision. The previous engine used a cross-plane crankshaft. This one switches to a flat-plane crank. What does that mean? More efficient turbo flow. Better exhaust geometry. But flat-plane engines vibrate. In an S-Class, that's completely unacceptable. So what did they do? 2 additional balance shafts. The engine essentially runs like it has 3 crankshafts. That's serious cost, serious engineering. Why go through all of that? Because the customer still wants the V8, and Mercedes can't say no to that. The numbers, 537 horsepower, 750 newton meters of torque. When you put your foot down, it feels gentle at first. Then, the turbos come in and it gets serious, fast. But here's the most interesting thing. You don't feel the speed. The speedo reads 180, and you still feel like you're cruising on the highway. The sound hasn't been left to chance either. With the flat-plane crank transition, the classic V8 sound could have been lost. But Mercedes reworked the exhaust timing to bring it back. Up to 3,000 revolutions per minute, you get that classic V8 character. There's even a slight American V8 feel to it. That's not an accident. That's a deliberate engineering decision. The biggest leap in this generation is the technology. This car is now a supercomputer. Water-cooled processing system. High RAM capacity. Real-time computation. And the interior is all screens. But this generation brings something new. The super screen. The main multimedia display and the front passenger screen are now merged into one seamless, integrated unit. It comes standard, 3D display system, YouTube, Disney+, full internet access. The car is a standalone device at this point. And there's another detail. Both the front and rear seats have HD cameras for Microsoft Teams video calls. Holding a business meeting from the car is now a completely legitimate option. The Burmester sound system is standard. The cabin performs like a concert hall. In the rear, there's a dedicated control tablet. Seat adjustments, climate, blinds, entertainment, all controllable from the back. Rolls-Royce does this too. But the price here is roughly half. Comfort details go further than expected. Heated seats and steering wheel are standard. But this car also heats the front seat belts. Small detail, real difference. Air quality is taken seriously as well. The ionization filtration system can completely clean the cabin air in just 90 seconds. Even the charging setup has been thought through. The 50-watt wireless charger in the center console has its own ventilation system. Your phone charges without overheating. Trunk space, over 500 liters. On the non-hybrid version, you get even more room. And one thing worth mentioning for anyone who's been in the previous generation, that creaking and rattling from the console and certain interior panels, gone. Every material feels solid, not a single sound from anywhere. This cabin is completely dialed in. This is the part that impressed me most. The car runs over 25 sensors, including 5 radars and 12 ultrasonic sensors dedicated to the parking system alone. And this system doesn't just detect spaces as you drive past them. It detects them before you even arrive. Fully autonomous parking. The cameras are even aerodynamically designed to stay clean while driving. There's an AR-enabled head-up display. The projection on the windshield now delivers augmented reality navigation guidance. You never have to take your eyes off the road. The intelligent drive system reads the road gradient and corner geometry from GPS data and pre-adjusts the transmission accordingly. This technology exists in Rolls-Royce. It exists in semi-trucks. Now it's here. And then there's the cloud-based suspension, one of the most interesting features in this car. When the car detects a road bump, it sends that data to the cloud. Other S-Class vehicles approaching the same point automatically prepare their suspension before they get there. The cars are literally teaching each other how to read the road. Reverse drive assist. Up to 150 meters. The car retraces its exact path in reverse. BMW offers around 50 meters. This is 150. Rear axle steering at up to 10 degrees. The car pivots around itself. It doesn't feel like a large sedan at all. And the most interesting feature, curve mode. When you enter a corner, the car leans inward like a motorcycle, but not for driving dynamics. To reduce motion sickness for rear passengers, this car was designed around the question, what does the person in the back feel? Comfort is what the S-Class is built on. Air suspension comes standard. Cobblestone roads feel smooth. 21-inch wheels, and still soft. That's normally a contradiction. There's no better way to describe it than it just glides. Who's competing with the S-Class? 2 names, BMW 7 Series and Audi A8. The BMW 7 Series is the closest rival in the technology race. The i7 applies serious pressure on the electric side. Reverse drive assist is there too, but at around 50 meters. Driving dynamics are sharper in the BMW, but comfort and prestige, S-Class still leads. The Audi A8 is the most understated rival in the segment. Quattro all-wheel drive gives it the strongest all-weather case, but in technology and interior quality, it falls behind the S-Class. The A8 is an excellent car, but it's following the S-Class, not leading it. Both rivals are serious, but the S-Class still defines this segment. The competition is trying to look like the S-Class, not the other way around. Let's be honest. Does this car need this many screens? That question is still genuinely debated. Some people love it. The car feels like a high-end gadget. Others miss the old analog feel, physical buttons, simple controls. And there's a fair point in that criticism. Touch screens while driving can be distracting. Even basic functions like climate control are buried in submenus. Mercedes knows this, but the market wants it. And realistically, the typical buyer of this car isn't the one at the wheel. They're the one in the back. Here's where I land on this car. The V8 is alive and more refined than ever in this generation. The technology is at the absolute top. Active safety, entertainment, connectivity. The comfort is beyond question. The S-Class is still the reference point for this segment. It's very close to Rolls-Royce territory, but significantly more accessible. The S-Class is setting the standard. Again, what do you think? Is this level of digitalization the right direction? Or are you still looking for something more analog in your luxury car?